All right, so today we're diving into something I never really thought about much before window installation. Like I always figured it was pretty straightforward, but then I started going through these roll catcher guides and whoa, turns out there's a whole lot more to it than just slapping some glass in a frame right.
You're telling me. It's one of those trades you don't really think about until you need it, but when you do, you want someone who knows what they're doing. And that's where all these details come in.
Totally. So let's say we're tagging along with a window installer for the day. What's the process actually look like from start to finish?
Well, picture this. You're at some old house, maybe a Victorian or something, with those original windows. First things first, you can get that old window out. And that alone can be tricky. You might run into rotted wood layers of paint from like 100 years ago, even structural issues hiding in the walls.
Now that's what I call job security. Every house is like an archaeological dig.
Right. And every job requires you to think on your feet a bit. Once the old window's out of there, you got to make sure the opening is prepped for the new one. That means making sure it's level, we call that plumb, and that the opening is the right size. This is where all these terms like sill and flashing come into play. Jargon maybe, but crucial for a good install.
So there's real precision involved, not just shoving a square peg in a square hole.
Exactly. And it gets even more technical because you have to factor in building codes too. Like, did you know there are rules about how much natural light a room needs based on its size? A window installer has to know all that stuff, especially when you're dealing with older homes that might not meet current codes.
Wow. It's like construction meets code enforcement all in one. Talk about multitasking.
Exactly. And we haven't even gotten to the physical demands yet. We're talking working outdoors in all kinds of weather, hauling heavy windows, sometimes even working up high.
Yeah, the guide mentioned all the new tools and materials that are changing the game. Like, are we talking robot assistants now or
Yeah.
something?
Haha. Not quite robots yet, but definitely high-tech stuff. Laser levels for crazy accuracy power tools, specifically for window installation, even new materials that make the windows lighter.
Okay, so technology is lending a hand, literally.
Mm.
But what about the mental side of things? The guide stressed how important it is to keep learning in this field.
Oh, absolutely. There are always new types of windows coming out, each with their own quirks to install, like those triple-paned windows with special coatings for energy efficiency. Super popular now. Installers have to stay updated on those techniques and materials to get it right.
Makes sense. Don't want to be the one who messes up a super efficient window and sends someone's energy bills through the roof.
Exactly. Plus, building codes change all the time, especially as energy efficiency becomes more important. A good window installer is always learning, adapting to all the latest advancements.
Okay, so we've got physical strength, mental agility, and a dedication to lifelong learning. This is way more than I ever pictured.
And that's just scratching the surface. We haven't even touched on the different career paths in this field yet.
Oh, right. The guide had some pretty interesting examples. I'm curious to hear more about how someone actually builds a career out of window installation. So if someone wants to make window installation their career, huh? What does that even look like?
Well, you can start as an apprentice learning the ropes from more experienced installers. Kind of like a hands-on education. You get to see how it's done in the real world.
So it's not just about knowing the technical stuff. There's a mentorship aspect too.
Definitely. And as you gain experience, you can move up to lead installer. That's where you start managing projects, overseeing a team.
Okay, so there's a leadership component. I never thought about that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And some people realize they're good at that and they move into project management, coordinating installations for big construction jobs, renovations, that kind of thing. Others might find they have a knack for sales, using their knowledge to help customers pick the right windows.
Wow. From handling a hammer to closing deals. That's quite a jump.
It is. And then there's always the entrepreneurial route. The guide had this great story about a woman who started her own window installation business. Started small, now she's got this thriving company specializing in restoring old windows.
That's awesome. Building your own success literally. It's cool how this one trade can lead to so many packs.
It really speaks to the transferable skills you pick up along the way. Think about it. You're solving problems on the fly when you run into those unexpected issues. You're laser focused on the details to get that perfect fit and a watertight seal. And you've got to communicate clearly with homeowners, other contractors, making sure everyone's on the same page. Those are valuable skills no matter what field you're in.
It's true. It's like you're not just installing windows, you're installing confidence in yourself.
100%. And let's not forget the satisfaction of a job well done. You finish installing a window, you step back, you see what you've created. It's functional. It looks good. It just feels good to know you did that.
Plus, you've made that building more energy efficient, which is huge these days.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the importance of staying updated on all the new technology and codes.
Right. You talked about triple pane windows, but what other cool innovations are out there these days?
Oh man, where to even start? There are windows with blinds built right in. You can raise and lower them with a button on a remote control even. And self-cleaning glass that uses sunlight to break down dirt. How cool is that? They even have smart windows that can automatically adjust their tint to control the temperature and light inside.
Whoa, windows are getting smarter than smartphones these days. I can definitely see why you've got to keep learning in this field. You don't want to be left behind when everyone's got robot windows.
Uh-huh, right. And it's not just the fancy stuff either. Even basic window technology is constantly evolving. Like, did you know there are new types of window frames out there? Fiberglass, for example. It's strong like vinyl, but it looks like wood. Much nicer aesthetically. But each material has its own quirks. How to install it properly.
It's amazing how much there is to learn about something I thought was so simple.
That's the beauty of these deep dives, though, isn't it? We take so much for granted. We see the surface, but we don't always appreciate the complexity underneath. But when we take the time to look closer, we discover a whole world of knowledge and hidden wonders.
Like walking past a building 100 times and then finally really seeing it. All the craftsmanship, all the intricate systems that make it all work.
Exactly. And speaking of intricate systems, we haven't even touched on the role of AI in the world of window installation yet.
AI for putting in windows. Now that's a combo I wouldn't have thought of.
It's more common than you'd think. Remember how RoleCatcher talks about using AI to give your job applicator a boost?
Right. Like making your resume stand out to those AI systems that scan them now.
Yeah, it's all about knowing what those algorithms are looking for. Instead of generic terms, you got to show them what you can do with concrete examples. So let's say you tackled a tough window install in a really old house. Instead of just saying problem solving on your resume, you describe how you dealt with unexpected problems. Like maybe you had to work around some weird structural stuff to make the window fit right.
Show, don't tell, the golden rule of resumes, right?
Exactly. And RoleCatcher gives you the tools to do just that. They even have AI-powered practice interviews to help you get ready for the tough questions.
It's like having a personal career coach in your back pocket. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from the actual installation work to the different career paths you can take to even AI playing a role. What's a big takeaway here for our listeners, even if they're not planning on becoming window installers themselves?
I think the biggest thing is to remember to look beyond the surface. We tend to make assumptions about jobs and industries without really knowing what they involve. Window installation might seem pretty basic at first glance, but as we've seen, it takes a unique combination of technical skills, problem solving, and just being able to adapt to whatever comes up.
It's a good point. Every profession has its own hidden depths. There's always more to it than meets the eye.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe something we talked about today sparked someone's interest in a new field, or even just made them think about their own career in a new way.
Or at the very least, it gave us a new appreciation for all the work that goes into creating the spaces we live and work in.
Absolutely. Next time you're walking by a building, take a minute to look at the windows. They're not just panes of glass. They represent a whole lot of skill, precision, and innovation.
And maybe, just maybe, you'll think back to this conversation and all the people who make those windows a reality. So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and never underestimate the power of taking a closer look.